Flory Models, I'm Flory, and on this week's show, we've got airbrushing the wash. Many questions from last week about will we airbrush the wash onto the Tiger. So this week I'm going to show you about putting it onto lighter colours such as greys and how to get it off with using water as well, and little bits and pieces like that. Reviews this week, we've got the massive Platinum Edition Revell 1 to 350 scale USS Iwa Jima. This is the LDH7 limited edition kit, which is absolutely huge. Going the other direction, lots of questions about 1/72nd scale kits that I don't seem to review too many. So this week we've got probably the biggest 1/72nd kit you can get, which is the Russian SU-27 early type by Trumperter. So it should be quite a nice kit. Plus we've got all the news that's coming out at the moment, your questions and all the updated from the forum on the SIGs and group builds. Okay, so the news. Well, the big news is Trumperter have officially now released the information on the 1/32nd A6A Intruder. Now this kit has been in the pipeline now for over 5 years, and I got really excited when I first saw the test shots and things like that about it, and then for some reason it sat on the back burner all those years. Finally it's now due for release, so it's going to be sort of in the summertime. I've had information it's going to be sort of June, July time coming through like that. No news on prices yet, but needless to say it's not going to be cheap. It's probably going to be around about the £100 mark. But as I said, it's one of those kits I've been waiting on for absolute ages. And as you can see, we've only got a couple of things here. There's lots of information on the net about it and everything else, but it should be a nice kit. I know for a fact they're bringing out the tram version and the later versions of the Intruder as well. So no doubt, hopefully, we'll start to see things like the Prowler as well will be nice in 1/32nd. Can't see a reason why not. Obviously, it worked that way with the 1/48s and everything else like that. The other thing as well, Edard are doing a rebox of the F-15C by Academy. Now this is a limited edition kit run of 1,500 kits. What you get in the box, well, basically what we did the other week. But as I said, it's not cheap. It's £55 for the actual one. But if you want a limited edition type kit, perhaps something to look a bit nice on the shelf, and then one day you can move forward for doing it, certainly that is the way to do it. Okay, forum news. Okay, lots of new members joining, which is absolutely great. I think we've picked up around about 100 this week, which is very nice of you. Most of you making your way to the forum, which is great, because otherwise you'll miss out on so much information that's in there. Couple of things. Please have a read up of the guide for the forum, because we do have, well, not strict, but certainly we try to keep it more modelling orientated. A couple of things that have been popping up. A lot of you have been using swear words. Quite frankly, I think this ties in with the modelling theft, shall we call it, that happened on the forum with some of you guys. You know, there's no point putting in swear words, okay, because obviously we don't allow that. So putting in blank, 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 you know, star, star, star is the same thing. So, you know, don't do it, guys. There's no need for it. We're nice guys in there. We don't need to lower ourselves to other people's standards and everything else like that. So if we can keep it nice and clean. Other thing as well, there seems to be, it's a bit of a dumping ground, is one word we've been calling it. But if you're not quite sure where things go, it just ends up in modelling chat. Honestly, guys, you know how big the forum is. You can see here, it does go on. Have a brief look through, and if you're not sure, just shoot one of the team a PM, either me or Hans, obviously your first port of call, but the other guys as well in the team, and we can say to you, oh, you're probably better off in, you know, X, Y, Z areas of the forum. Also, when you're writing things up, have a look at the guidelines, because a lot of people say the search doesn't work. The search does work, it's just how it's worded, okay? So if we all keep it on the same page of, like, you know, 1/48 scale written as, you know, 1/48 scale, blah, 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 instead of 1 ... scale or 48 scale, because obviously the searches don't pick up on those words. But say the search engine is good. I've been using it a lot this week. You just have to be careful how you word it. Now, Steve Sutcliffe, one of the team, has been going around now for weeks tidying up people's posts by changing them over. But as I said, it would help everybody out, and it will make the search just run a lot faster and everything else like that. So if we can just, as I say, keep an eye out where you're going to go. If it's anything to do with painting, weathering and everything else, there's a huge area on the site, as you know, about that one. But it'll just make everywhere look a lot nicer. Now, we've got lots of things happening. Because everything that's happened this week, I'm finishing off the Seahawks you see down below. I haven't had time to actually finish editing up the Century Series video, which was the SIG that finished last week. Beautiful work in that one, guys. I will get that done for you certainly for next week's show, but for this week we haven't had time. The Tamiya group build, I reckon we're going to have 100 people finish this, which means it's going to cost 100 medals to go out with the bits and pieces that go with it. So I think we have to get a second mortgage for this one. Anyway, it's great that so many of you have taken part in the group build. You know, it's the first time we've, I think, broken the 100 barrier for 100 entries into this one. I'm not quite sure I'm going to do even the montage video at the end, because obviously that's going to go on forever as well. So I'm going to have to sit down and have a good think about this one. Okay, the Space Sci-Fi group build, SIG. Only got 5 entries into this one, and it's going to finish on the 31st, so you've only got a couple of weeks to get going with that one. The Whirlybird SIG. Okay, we've got 8 finished, 9 I've finished, as you can see down here. You'll see a lot more of this one later, is on the actual Seahawk build and everything else like that. It's a dog of a kit, but I tell you what, I'm really happy with the way that turned out now, and I'm really glad I've done it. So that's my entry in. I'll get the details of that into the forum on Friday, or today as you're reading this, you'll see that one. What else have we got? The Easter egg hunt. Great job on this one. Do have to thank Simon Webb, who's leading this one. Brilliant. You know, we've sort of moved on from just building the Hasegawa egg planes, and that's how we started this a couple of years ago, to now the guys are scratch building and using great materials and taking normal kits and turning them in with massive amounts of filler. There's a great job on that. Obviously, we'll cover that one in detail as well a little bit later on. The P51 SIG has started as well, so probably see it over my shoulder. There's mine, up there I did as well, so obviously the video build for that is available on the site, as well as the 148 scale videos on that one. You've got the 30th of June on that one. Dougie Hunter's moderating this one. Again, thank you to him, great job. We've got 16 entries in that one already, so it's only going a week. Next up is going to be the Korean group build. Obviously that will start next week. I'll talk about it more on next week's show. Jürgen has kindly donated 3 prizes for this one, and he will be moderating it as well. So thanks for Jürgen for that one. That's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so as you can see down here, we've got the Seahawk done, which is all finished. Now, to be honest, there's a couple of parts still to come on this one. So you've now got part 4 is up on the site today, and I have to say, really enjoying this one. Part 4 is going to cover basically the painting and everything else that goes down with it like that, breaking up textures of paint and working the way through. Now it is a speed build, but I'm showing more in depth about weathering and painting and everything else like that. So as you say, you can see that one on the site now, but here's a slight clip from next week's part, which talks about actually doing the weathering by using the wash, of airbrushing it on and everything else like that. So let's take a look. Now what we want to do now is further weather in. Now, a couple of techniques we could use. We could move straight back to the spray bay now, give it more of a grimy look, perhaps by put in very thin black paint, or dark greys down, just to simulate sort of grime and dirt and everything else like that. You could give it a straightforward wash, okay, using something like the Pro Modeller's wash, just to grime it all in and everything else like that with a brush. Or the way we're going to do it, we're going to airbrush this on and let it naturally hang, let it dry, then we're going to paint over it again. So something a little bit different, because normally we sort of come along now with our wash and brush and we just brush it on. The only trouble with that, it's great for doing it on aircraft if you're just going to wipe it all away, alright? If you want it to be more of a weathering effect full on, i.e. squirt it on and leave it, because if you wanted to, you can overcoat and lock it in, or you can do what we can do in a moment and come back and airbrush over the top of the wash. It's totally safe, there's no nasties in it or anything else like that, so you don't have to worry about going over it and things going wrong and everything else. Now remember, it's water braced, okay, so we don't have to worry about it being in the spray bay, so we can do it right here. The only thing is, it is incredibly messy, because this stuff will flick and spit and go absolutely everywhere. So what I'm going to do is, we just move that some stuff out of the way, generally. Alright, I'm going to put down a little bit of foam just to the rear. This is literally just to catch it from spraying off and everything else. Hopefully you can still see that on camera. Or you just move it round. A little bit like that, I'm sure you can. Okay, 2 options, either going in with the black if you want it to be really dirty, everything else like that, or the dark dirt. I'm going to use the dark dirt. You could obviously use some of the other colours, we've got like the muds and things like that, but certainly this will do for us. So, airbrush, you want to turn your air pressure down a little bit, because We don't want to be in a situation where you're literally obliterating everything. So we're probably down to, I don't know what's that, probably about 10 to between 10 and 15 psi. Alright, it's probably a working pressure of around about 12. So straightforward, give it a good shake in the bottle, and then pour it straight into your colour cup. Now, don't overstick tons in. You'll notice it as it flows around the colour cup that it should be quite an oily colour, alright? And when you spray it down here, you can see it is a very oily colour. So what we're going to do, we'll start on the bottom and at the rear. Okay, now it will bead up just a little bit, as you can see like this. So what we want to do is flood it. Well, I mean flooding, it's a bit like putting too much on, okay? So we have it like this, and what we're going to do is work up the tail. As you can see, we do it until it all goes everywhere. Now, I know what you're thinking, and don't panic. There's a lot we can do with this. You're not going to harm your decals or anything else like that, because they're sealed down under a coat of clear. So I had a couple of coats of clear, okay, to seal them down and everything else. And then a coat of satin over the top just to hold it all in place. Okay, so we'll just come in with the other ones. Okay, and all we do, we're just going to go along, put it down. Okay, and we're just going to do the rear half just for the minute, just to show you. Alright, and then what we're going to do is leave it. Now, as you can see, it does look a little like paint, but what you need to do is let it naturally hang as it would in real life. So in this case, everything's going to go south, and it will cling to all like big rivets, it will cling obviously to things like panel lines, all those areas, alright? So when you're in like this, you can then just come along and spray everywhere else. Alright, put a lot more in here. Okay, just coming in from the top, in from the sides. Okay, but you need it to cover everything. Okay, if it doesn't cover, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with clean spots and dark spots and everything else like that. Okay, so we're round like this, and now we've got to carefully pick this little guy up. We just hold it on the sides and we'll retouch those in. Okay. Now, don't panic too much about anywhere you go over and you think, oh no, I've made it horrible. Because don't forget, with this stuff, we have that beautiful option of just going around and rinsing it all clean away. So all we're doing is going over it with one coat, just like that. Take that out of the way. And as you can see, it does give us very, very dirty looking aircraft. Now, if you're in a warm place, it's not going to take long to dye, around about 15-20 minutes. Here it's a bit cold today, I'm going to leave it for about an hour to totally go off. Remember, you will need to do the underside, so what I would do is let that dry off a little bit, then just a bit of a spray on the underside, because what's going to happen, the capillary action of all this wash is going to go to the bottom and it's going to make big lines, something like that, okay? But you need to blend all that in. So the easiest way to do that, if you want to do it now, normally let this all roll down as you just take your wash, which I'll do in a moment. Okay, I'll just hold it here, and then you just flip it over and put more wash on the bottom. Alright, just to take care of any areas that haven't got any. Alright, just like that, then put it down. I'm just touching these edges. Okay. And as I said, let it all naturally go down, find its own levels, and then what we're going to do in a moment is come up with quite a nice little technique where we put clean water through the airbrush and literally wash it off where we don't want it, okay? Obviously we can rub it off with a cloth if you don't want any certain areas, things like that, but what we can actually do is rinse it down to give us a more weathered look. Get it back in the paint bay, respray over for those corrosion control areas and things like that are also too often seen on these aircraft, okay, and that should give us a really, really nice, heavily weathered aircraft instantly. Okay, so we are dry on the top, still a little bit wet on the bottom, okay, but as you can see, it does give you a very grimed out look to your model. Now, you know, at this point you might think, yeah, no, that's actually quite really what we're after. So if you wanted to, you would need to overcoat it to seal it in. It's too thick to be handleable. You're going to leave fingerprints in it and everything else like that. Just remember, as soon as it gets wet, it goes back to being a liquid and wipes away very, very easily. So at any point, you can obviously take some off, you can put some back and everything as you go like that. So what we want to do is knock this back a little bit in certain areas, perhaps leave it around here because it looks quite nice down the back here, but certainly up the front, on the top definitely, crew access areas, things like that, we need to knock a lot of that off, and obviously the underside needs to be taken. Okay, so from this angle you can probably see it a little bit better of how this actually is. So, give you an idea of how far we've come, what the wash does. Here we have the original rotor colours compared to the model itself, and as you can see, when you see it like that, you can see how much the weathering does, and it's something that can be very, very straightforward. So what we're going to do now is just wipe off some of the top areas a little bit first. So we've got normal kitchen towel. Okay, and then what we're going to do, we're going to rub it manually off of the top, this entire top area. Alright, so usual thing, we just wet the cloth just a little bit. Okay, and then we come in. Now if we do it just not trying to wipe it all away, we're trying to leave grind in areas. We can get this texture business going on the top, which is quite a nice touch. Alright, so we're just going to go around elsewhere. So we know it's not going to be so bad at the top here. Okay, a little bit more just to take that off. And you can see very quickly it goes from being grimy, horrible, you over wet it like we did there, just a little bit too much fluid, and all of a sudden it's all gone. Okay, and that's the thing with this, we can take it to whatever levels we like. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to fade it back over the back ends here. So it's just that thing of pressure versus moisture, because obviously the more pressure you've got on, obviously the more you're going to scrape away. But the thing is, what we want to do is leave a lot of griminess behind. So pick your points where you want to hold it, like here. So down the back here we've switched over to dry. Okay, so it comes off on the cloth, but what we want to do is just rub it down to get most of it off, but still trying to leave a bit behind. Okay, now this is where texture comes in, because the texture enables it to grip. Because without it, if it's a glossy surface, it would just come off straight away. So down the back here, all we're going to do is doing it dry and just giving it a little rub. And as you can see, we've got quite a bit coming off as we go. So we just do the same on the other side, just around this entire tail area. Okay, and just up that. We've got a little bit of stubborn around these areas, so we're just going to lightly moisten the cloth, but we're not going to rub hard. Because it's slightly damp, we're going to let the dampness take it off rather than me. Okay, so this is the type of texturing we were on about that you can get in here, really, really nice. Okay, so this is the trouble area, if you like, is up here on the back. Now, when you've got this stuff totally dry, it is quite handleable, so don't worry about grabbing hold of it. You're not going to rub it away. But what I'm trying to leave up here is quite a bit of grime left behind. And don't forget, what you can do, you can take it off from somewhere else. So perhaps we'll grab a bit from the front here, start to take it lightly off of the front, and then put it back on and grime it all back onto where we want it. Okay, and as you get a feel for using the wash, you'll get used to how much you can take, how much you can leave behind, and everything else like that. Again, cotton buds, they're great. Q-tips, because you can just get in, wipe away where you can't get in with a cloth. But again, a wet one will obviously wipe it all away, versus quite a dry one will just take off the stubborn bits. Okay, and again, when you've got quite a bit on your cotton bud like this, you can actually go around and put some back on. So we've got a bit too clean up here, want to make this a little bit grubby, shall you say, so you just put a little bit back on, let that dry, you can take it off. So we're just going to smear this on, and this is another way how you can do staining and streak effects and everything else. So we're just going to grind this down a little bit more, because from our point of view, what we want to do is come back with certainly a bit of post shading, which is going to put in the original colours back in here and everything else. So once we're on, again, switching to your dry cloth, you can go through and basically blend it all back in. So we say we've gone from clean to dirty, okay, and we'll take it back to clean again in a moment. But you can just, as you see, take it on and off exactly where you want. So just remember, if you don't want anywhere too much, you can take it down. Now the other way you can do this, which is quite a nice fun technique, okay, with your airbrush, warm water, okay, so this is just literally just normal tap water, goes in the actual colour cup, okay, Alright, and what you can actually do is a technique I call rinsing down. So you come along like this, okay, go over the top of it, and what happens is it will get wet, it will reactivate and start to move. And then it's a bit like washing your car. You can rinse this stuff down a little bit, and you can go in quite hard, like here, and make it clean, or you can say you can just rinse back a little bit, okay, just to knock a little bit off, perhaps in certain areas and places, okay, and do little patterns and clean spots and dirty spots exactly how you want to. Remember, don't touch this with a cloth now until it's totally dry, or you'll end up taking the entire thing with it. So there you go. This is the thing with this. You can put it on and off. If it doesn't look right, if you've got it too much, just put the wash and pop it all back on, okay? If obviously, you know, you don't like it at all, full stop, just rinse the entire thing off just like that, using it like a pressure washer. Okay, or there's anything in between, because you can come back now if you wanted to and think, okay, well, obviously up here we've made this extremely clean, it's too clean here, so we just pop in with a bit of a brush full, okay, and we'll just touch in, okay, and we'll put it all back in, perhaps a bit down here, a bit more up here, okay, and we'll put in these areas where we've just taken it off. Let them dry, rub it away and start again. So I'll carry on with this one, go right the way through it, and we'll see what we get at the end. Okay, so there we go, that's the wash all done. And said it's one of those things, it's very fluid in its use. So, you know, add, take away, and to be honest, is what I did with this one. I took a little bit too much away, especially up here at the top, went round, put another coat over it, let it dry, and then it's one of those things, the more wash is on here, the quicker it dries. So it dried with literally minutes, and then you can come back in, wipe away and everything else. So I spent a little bit of time especially working around this back end and trying to get the right type of effects we want, because certainly you probably see up here when you look at it like this, it's nice and grimy as you can see, but what we're trying to do here is get the exhaust areas being pretty grimy, around the crew areas, things like that, okay? And then at the top, we're more worried about what's going on at the back here, this type of thing, rather than the front, because it's going to be cleaner. And then on the other side, basically a repeat again, although this side a little bit more grubby around here because we haven't got crew interaction with them going in and out, because obviously it's just the gunner door, things like that. But certainly at the front, nice and clean, no real problems at all. And then underneath, we've got suitable grime. I've grimed up a little bit more on this side. I'm just allowing for things, more things are going to happen here. So we've got the access side, so it's a little bit more grime underneath than it is on the other side. And as you can see, you work your way down to the tail, you know, nice and grime and everything else like that. Okay, so there you go. It's just a little insight into it. Obviously, members, you'll see the full thing of that, which is a lot more in depth, which will be in next week's part of this one, which will be part 5. Now, there will be part 6 because, quite frankly, it's going to squash it a little bit too much during editing. So I am going to make it a 6-parter, but it'd be quite a short part on that one. And then obviously we'll be starting on the Wingnuts Wings, which I have made a start, which is over there. And as I say, we'll bring you up to speed on that one next week when I start showing you the first part of that. So there we go. Seahawk coming on really, really nicely. And as I said, it's part of the SIG as well on the site. So really enjoying that one. Okay, reviews. So this week, I was still waiting for the paint to come in, to be honest. So I want to do a great review on paint. To be honest, I've got in the new colours and the new primers and everything else from Valero. The idea being, I'm waiting for the Italeri ones to turn up, and I'm going to do an on-test between the both of them. Ordered from Lucky Models 2 weeks ago now, and still no sign. So I'm probably going to give it till Monday and then kick off, quite frankly. Anyway, so this week's release is out at the moment. First up, we've got this particular kit. Now, Trumperter, as I say, their 1/72 have tended in the past to be a little bit dodgy, shall we say, a little bit iffy, okay, but they do seem to be sort of, you know, really coming together now and everything else like that. So we've actually come out with the 1/72 scale Russian SU-27 or Su-27. This is the early type in 72nd scale, which is probably going to be the largest 1/72 scale fighter you'll build, because this thing is enormous, as you can tell, just by the box itself. One thing that struck me though is this. Now, I don't know how well, let's just drop this top camera down here. Now, has he had a mid-air collision with the Orion, I'm thinking? You know, because he has lost the top of his tail. Now, I'm not sure if this is just a painting thing or something else like that, but we've got smoke coming out of the P3, okay, you can see it up here in the box art, and he's missing a tail. So we can only assume that he's had a mid-air collision, which is like, That's got to be the first box art I've ever seen with a mid-air collision. Totally mad. Anyway, let's see what we get in the box. So, usual thing, good sturdy boxes, everything else. Now this is the first time I've actually opened this box and had a look at all my reviews. And to be honest, that's different. The part is stapled in. The actual fuselage is actually got 3 staples holding this in, which is, I've never known that before either. So here we are, we're on lots of firsts here. So if we just pop this open. Now with the power of television, I'm just going to have to grab the knife. Okay, so we have the knife. So let's have a look what we've got in here. So actually what we have is a situation where we've got both the fuselage halves together, quite reminiscent of the 148 kit by Academy, the way it goes in. The placements underneath look to be the same. The first thing that grabs me is it looks to join up absolutely beautiful, just like this. But as you can tell by the size of this thing, it's no small kit. We've got nice recessed panel lines right the way through in. We've got ejector pin marks top and bottom on this particular one. So we've got one up here and we've got one down below. I'll just bring this camera out a little bit because it's a bit big. We've got a nice rubber band holding on the front, and we've got a protective on the back, but we want to see inside. So we've got a tiny bit of writing down here, quite hefty ejector pin marks, but nothing that's in there. Again, we've got release points for the mould. It's where it's actually injected into the plastic. Just left them right down here. I have to say, for the scale, we're talking 1/72 here, it's beautifully detailed. We've got great riveting detail all the way over this. We know the Sue's covered in rivets, all of them. The only thing worries me, just straight off the bat here, having built a few of these in the past, if we just drop this top cam down, it looks like we've got a fault down in here. Now I'm going to try and do this. To be honest, the camera angles, as you can tell today, are nowhere in the usual place. You might be able to see these round marks. Now the trouble I've got here is, as you can see, they're overlapping. They're like Audi rings. They're not in situ, so I'm assuming the original, I haven't seen that on the original or anybody else's kit, but I could be wrong. It could be like that. So we just check on the other side. But as you can probably see, catching it in the light, we have got beautiful riveting detail all over this one. As I say, I do apologise this week. I'm in a different position sitting here. The excuse is it's a massively bright day out there, and because this time of the year the sun is so low, if I sit that side, it's like I'm silhouetted completely. So hence I'm on here. I was going to go completely on the other side, but that's a real bad angle. So anyway, very nice fuselage halves. It does seem to go together quite nicely, but as you can see, you know, that's a 1/72 scale kit, and it is absolutely huge just by that. So very, very nice. Furthermore, in the kit we actually get, we've got another bag, so we'll just rip this one out again. So down in here we've got your obligatory nose cone, things like that. Now these are bent over, so just be careful how you remove them from the tree. Sometimes you get the marks. We have got 2 types of tail. Now what I'm guessing is, as I said, I haven't done my homework on this kit too much, so I don't know, but I'm guessing here we've got an early and late types of flanker in the same kit. So I'm just trying to see the massive difference. We've got a couple of panel line differences between the tail planes here. The cockpit tub is basically non-existent, it's flat completely, but we have got nicely detailed gear. All the ejector pins seem to be in the right places. Okay, they're heavy, but probably not. It's just because we're dealing with 72nd scale. Quite nice detailed gear and all the areas like that. Under here, I'm just wondering what it is. So we just gently take this off, and underneath the bit here we have a couple of seats. Very, very basic, very, very crude. You might want to replace them with some resin ones on this one. Moulded in harnesses, but nothing you to get particularly excited about with that one. So, next bag. The only thing I do like about Trumperter, I just love this protective areas they do for everything, because these things really do work, because I've never had a broken part on a Trumperter kit. So we've got one piece moulded, which is very, very nice. We've got a very fine mould line seam, because obviously the way it released from the mould on here for these intakes. Another nose, obviously the different lates and earlies type with it. A set of quite crude and quite softly moulded burner cans running down. But again, ejector pin marks all seem to be out of the way, and they're not too bad at all. So we have in here, okay, tail fins. Obviously, you know, if you did want to do it as the box, you'd have to cut one off, okay, and do it through. But again, very, very nice crisp lines going all over these. We've got no evidence of flash anywhere on this whatsoever. Beautiful work, I must admit. This is so, so fine and crisp. It's basically up to anybody's standard. It's Tamiya standards, Hasegawa standard, anything else like that, but absolutely beautifully moulded all the way around these. Very, very nice. As I said, I'm not quite sure how you can pick them up, but trust me, very, very nice. Okay, we have in here, I'm hoping for a clear part. So again, as we're saying, very, very nice. Packaging is absolutely spot on. A lot of manufacturers can learn from this. Unfortunately, we have got a huge centre seam running down here, and the thickness of the glass is massive. You know, it's probably 1 millimetre thick to 1.5 millimetre thick glass, so as you imagine, when you put it over here, you can probably see the wobble as you go through and can see it on there. But they're clear, crisp, apart from a centre seam running down the middle of it that you'll have to obviously sand out and take care of. We've got tutorials on the site for that. You can easily remove those. Let me just pop that, protect that again. So we've got a bag of weapons. So as you can imagine, again, soft moulds, so you're just putting the fins on the top. We've got Archer Alamo missiles down here. Quite nice. They're all recessed panel lines onto them as well. They seem to be quite sharp. They probably take a wash quite nicely. And everything else. The only thing is you've got 3. I'm just wondering, yes, you would need it, because obviously it will carry 6 of the medium range missiles. I'm just wondering why you would need so many of the same type. But anyway, you do get 3. Just trying to work that one out there on the weapons fit. So, another set of tail fins, so we can compare now. Now, all you flanker experts out there can tell me what the difference is between the two. Of the earlier and the late type. So when you compare them on a side by side like this, you can see quite clearly we've got this one here which doesn't have the big pointy aerials on the front. Trailing edges are the same, overall same size. It looks like we've got the same detail on them. So all it actually is this bump is different. The sizing and everything else I do believe are exactly the same, which they do look to be. So there's no difference in overall size or shape, it's literally just this area front, which is a weird way of doing it, because you think they just mould that little bit that you could stick on rather than mould the entire tail. Okay, down here we've got weapons rails. I won't bother getting this one out. And I presume that's the ECM pod on there. Again, quite nicely, they will take a wash no problem. Considering its scale, they are not soft whatsoever. Down in here, we've got very, very basic, again I won't worry about getting them out, very, very basic decals for going on to make your instrument panel. I don't know, it's that size of aircraft, I think it could probably do with one. So I don't know if somebody will come out with a little resin jobby for this one, but it'd be nice if they did. Missile decals, as you can see, and as you say, we've got placements and everything else, quite small, quite cute, no problem. So we've got no photo etch in this one at all. Quick look at the instructions, see what we got down in here. So we've actually got your obligatory flyer for what's coming out, paint guides and that we'll have a look at in a moment. So as we can imagine, going through cockpit, showing the decals going in, opening up a couple of holes, fuselage goes together. Exactly the same as its 148 brother. Okay, so then down here again we've got opening up the holes underneath the intakes. That area itself, which is quite nice because, as I said, you don't have to worry about centre seam, it's just the back one. No problem there, it's good, running right the way through. Nothing I can see. Gear, crude, but it works, we just spoke about. Okay, the tails. So you have got the option with the tails to go through. Okay, canopy goes on, the nose goes on. It only shows one type of nose going on here. You get two in the kit, so obviously it's the later nose. Okay, weapons bit go on. To be honest, it's not going to take long for this one to go together at all. See, again, I can't quite see why it's asking for so many weapons, but anyway, I digress. So we have down here the missile sheets, obviously the placements. You've got your colour call-outs, as you know, Mr. Hobby, Valero, Model Master, Tamiya, Humbrol, which is pretty standard. And we've then got our markings. So I'm just trying to see the actual markings. There's no actual guide for what actual aircraft this is, apart from obviously it's Red 83. Flanker colours, absolutely beautiful. Getting them in acrylic, a nightmare. That's the trouble. Okay, Red 86. Both of them showing the bigger tail, which has got this little point on the top of them. Okay, and I think they have a pointier nose, the earlier one. The later one had a more bulbous nose to it. But again, I actually have to say, for a 1/72nd scale kit, and if you're not a 1/72nd scale modeler, doing something of this size will be absolutely fantastic, because, as I say, you're not working so small. It's not like you're working on something teeny tiny. That's not bad whatsoever. So there we go. All in all, I think, he says, just check it, notes. That particular kit is going to cost you £20, and I think you are getting a lot of money, a lot of plastic for your money. I can't see any issues with that at all. It should go together really, really nicely, so definitely highly recommended. Okay, so as you can see, ordered this this week. Okay, and to my surprise, this box turned up, and I'm thinking, what's that? You know, because it's absolutely massive. This is the box for this. It comes in its own cardboard box, which is amazing. Okay, I've always been asked, or always am being asked, to do a ship kit. And you know me, I don't do anything by half. I think, right, okay, so what we're going to do, it's got to be something big, impressive, and everything else. Now, I was going to do the Bismarck, okay, the new 200 scale one. But Stefan Carlson on the site is doing such an amazing job, I will just look pathetic against him doing it. That one will be up on the site soon, very, very soon. It is in the forum, and if you haven't seen it, go and have a look, because it is an absolute massive monster of a kit, and he's going completely to town on it. The photo etch looks amazing, and everything else. So I thought, right, I'll go for something slightly different. So then I'm thinking aircraft carriers. The Enterprise, Tamiya one, yeah, everyone's done it, and to be honest, it's showing its age a bit now. Want to do something a little bit different. Then I thought about the Airfix with Illustrious and the 148, 1 to 350 scale, but then, you know, as you say, I don't know, I'll go something in between, so we'll do something big, impressive, that I can weather down as well, and everything else. So that way, I suddenly stumbled across the new Platinum Edition for the Iwo Jima. Now, I haven't looked in this kit at all. It is still sealed here on the back. We've still got the original seals down here. So exactly what you get in here is anyone's guess. Now, I know how big this thing is. It is 73 centimetres because it tells me on the box, but apart from that, I really haven't got a clue. The only thing I do know is this is extremely heavy. So I'm guessing it's either got a lot of plastic in it or it's got a brick. Right, okay. Just move some of this stuff out of the way. Immediate impressions is the box is absolutely rammed, okay? We've got the instructions, so we will start there. So down in here, as you can see, here we go. We've got obviously background information about it and working our way through. Now, let's face it, Revell have brought out some real good naval kits, okay, there's no doubt about it. They've also brought out some real dogs and are still reboxing really old horrible kits, okay, but this particular one really caught my eye because I've seen it made up before and it's such an impressive looking kit, and it seems to be what I call their new generation of kits that they've brought out recently, which seems to be sort of, you know, there's good money spent into it and really, you know, very impressive. So this is what we're going for. If you haven't sure what one looks like, it's basically an assault class carrier. Helicopters, Harriers, Ospreys, landing craft, you name it, it does it. It's very similar to the Royal Navy's, well, was carriers, okay, and the way that it just, the deck running down through the middle on the straight and not on the angle like you might be used to with the Nimitz class carriers, things like that. As I said, this is going to be one of those ones where artistic license is going to be sort of my friend here. I want to weather this particular one up. I want it to make it look used. I want it to look like it's just come back after being in theatre and on, you know, a 6-month deployment or a 9-month deployment or something else like that, where it has got a little bit of leakage, shall we say, marks and things like that. Anyway, so in the kit, obviously we're getting Ospreys, which is quite nice. We've got the CH-53s, which are really nice. The hovercraft landing craft, we've got Sea Knights, we've got various vehicles for the deck. Again, really, really nice touches. So we've got forklifts, we've got, you know, the crew deck aircraft, the little vehicles, the power units, the fire engines, the tugs, things like that. We've got Humvees, both types. We've got artillery, we've got trucks, we've got Cobras, we've got landing craft. Oh, we've got assault vehicles, Abrams, other tanks. I'm losing it now. Seahawks, Harriers, and Cranes. Just to name but a few, okay? Okay, down in here, obviously we've got the call out for various things. The big thing is this is the Platinum Edition, so we get all the photo etch, which is one thing on, you know, actual, as you probably know, with aircraft, aircraft carriers, things like that. There's a lot of railings as well, just like normal ships, and it's going to be fun. So anyway, working our way through, we're talking about this is going to be the lower deck. It's going to be a very long and very complex build for this one. This is not going to be a speed build by any shape or means. What I intend to do with this build is, after the Wingnuts Wings, we've got the Phantom one coming out. After that one, I'm going to be doing this alongside other things. So we'll have a few builds on the go at once. As you can see in here by the state of it, we've got multiple areas. So obviously we've got the rear ramp section here, which obviously floods for landing craft and that coming in and out. A lot of detail. This goes on and literally on and on forever. And now I'm looking at it, I'm probably rabbling because I'm getting a little bit worried because I didn't quite think it was going to be as in depth. But as you can see going through, this really does go on and on and on. So we've got hundreds and hundreds of different parts going down in here, as you can see, right the way through up to the radar, which obviously be photo etch, I'm hoping. Okay, superstructure itself. Okay, at least we do get a standard type of stand for it. You could upgrade obviously with the wooden one things, which probably look a lot nicer, which is something I'll look into. And then obviously building the actual aircraft and everything that's going to go on this one. Again, very, very in-depth. That weighs a bit on its own. So what we'll do, we'll just have a skimmy through what we get in here. We pop this to one side. Now I'm not going to debag everything all out of this. I'm going to have a run through and see what I can see, because obviously there's tons of it. But basically looking through into the bags, we've got no sign of flash and everything else. We've got the name plaque just down here and everything else. Okay. We've got parts of the superstructure, obviously these are walls and everything else. We do have ejector pin marks, but again, I'm not sure where they're going to show on this until we get building. The detail does seem quite nice. Okay, I assume this is the inside of the actual loading bay that's inside for ships, because these are giant rubber things, I think, where they bash against. Again, very nicely detailed. We've got the hatches, the doors, these blocks, everything else. We've got the bow area there. That's a mirror of the other side. Working our way through all of this, as you can see. Elevator doors, floors, these are going to be going up and down, so you have got the little tie down and the fire extinguisher ports on this one. Again, looking down at the parts, we've got no flash absolutely everywhere. Everything seems to line up. No problems in there whatsoever. As I say, and as you make your way through this, as you can see, it is a lot of parts. I don't know what the part count is on this. Let's just say a lot. So we've got railings. Now, I think the photo etch ones will supersede a lot of this on this one. But as you can see, it just keeps coming and coming, and the parts are getting smaller and smaller. So we've got all the life rafts here, everything else that's going on. And as you can see, it just doesn't stop. Okay. We've got here, I do believe that's the landing craft. Okay. As you can see. Now, the big thing is, as I look through these looking for something to find fault with it, and I must admit I am having trouble, is our hovercraft skirts, quite nice touch, hovercraft bases, tanks, which actually do come multi-part tanks. So you have got tops, and to be honest, this does surprise me. They are beautifully detailed, because considering we are talking 350 scale here, 1 to 350, they are absolutely beautifully done. putting them together in my eyesight might be a different action. As you can see, more parts. That's the crane. These are the landing craft. Okay. And I assume these are more bits for the landing craft. And these are the guns, deck guns. On here we've got the smoke launchers for the tanks and everything else by the looks of it. Now, let's just have a look in this box. So we've got a box with this. So this is a box of clear parts. So these are the aircraft. So everything is in clear. We've got stowed rotors and open. So it's the CH-53s, I won't say its nickname. Okay. We've got Seahawks, Cobras, wing folds or open for the Ospreys themselves. The Sea Knights, again, options for open blades or folded. Okay, and the Harriers, obviously fixed wing aircraft. So that's all your aircraft on here. And I can tell you exactly how many we get, if I can get them back in the box. So in here you actually get 4 Sea Knights, 2 Harriers, 2 Seahawks. It's going to be 2 Cobras, although it doesn't say it. You get 4 Ospreys and 4 of the CH-53s. Looking at that. Okay, comes the fun bits. Okay, parts of this is going to be the bottom, the roof, I think, of the actual landing bay, and probably part of something. Gives you an idea of scale. So we've actually got the, which actually isn't too bad. This is going to be your stand for it. It's going to look like a dry dock. Personally, I like the way the other guys do it. Wooden plinth, some door handles, you know, just the lower parts, and then bolt them in. I think it just looks nice on wood. On plastic, I don't know, it doesn't tend to finish off very well. Now, in here, which we will open, will be the deck. So we just whip these on. So this is giving an idea of scale now. This is our deck part, okay? Which I must admit, we've got a little bit out the front, a little bit out the back. Actually, that's not too bad. That should fit on that shelf up there very, very nicely. But again, it's got a hell of a warp to it, and that's not just because it's sitting, it is bending a little bit, so you will have to straighten it out. Probably worth keeping it flat on your worktop for a couple of days before you fit it. Right there, okay. Beautifully packaged, I do have to say, and here we have the actual hull itself. So obviously we're not water lined, as you can see, and there's no way you could ever, unless you're very good, and sand it flat underneath. But as I said, this is a very large, very impressive model. This is very, very thick, okay, plastic. So, very nice details running down the sides, okay, which are all above the waterline. We have got this riveting which will play into our advantage. We've got big plans for this, to weather this one up. And this is covered and covered and covered in holes, which I'm assuming is all these little bits are going to be onto the side of this, which is going to make the decision on how we paint it and things like that when we come to build it later on quite interesting. Do you paint it first or build it first? Okay, and that's the thing. Do you build it in parts, paint it in parts, things like that? They're all different questions we'll have to think about. So, okay, here's the other bit. This is the bit I think why they call it platinum. As I said, I haven't done my homework on these kits at all this week. So we have guardrails all the way around. It's the only way you can make them at this scale realistic, because if you try it plastic, it just doesn't work. We've got more guardrails, everything else. We've got various grills, areas, things like that. And again, more guardrails and things. And then also we've got on this particular one, we've got things like the aerials, the radar, and all the areas that are very, very small, fine bits, which are quite nicely done. We've got ladders and all the rest of it to go on there. Finally, down there, we have the decals for it, which we'll just have a look just to see what we've got. This is the bit where I'm now thinking, perhaps I should have done illustrious. Okay, so if we just... Nice to see it's taped on. I know I keep saying that on other shows, but it would be nice if everyone did this because it stops you getting wrecked. So, as you can see down here, we've got the marks for the deck. Again, you know, are we going to paint them? Are we going to actually, you know, use the decals? Are the decals even going to go on the surface? Because there's lots of holes on there which are going to trap it for silvering. Again, it's one of those things we'll have to think about. But certainly perhaps these flight marks, everything else might be easier to actually spray these on ourselves, to mask up and spray, and then just use the numbers on them. But as I said, it's one of those things we will look at a little bit later on. And then down in here, I'm assuming these are all the teeny tiny decals for the various aircraft we've got on here. So obviously mainly they're all going to say Marines, okay, and the ship number of MQ. So going right the way through, very nicely done. It's a big kit. And to be honest, it does come with a big price tag, but you have got a lot of plastic here for your money. Looking at this in front, it's probably the most plastic I've seen out of any kit to date. It certainly seems to have a lot more plastic than I remember building the 1 to 350 kits from Tamiya, such as I say, the Yamamoto, you know, and all those Bismarck and things like that. It does seem to be a lot of plastic for your money. With the photo etch set as well, okay, it's not totally extensive, but it's quite comprehensive the way you get the decals, you know. Sound very Anne. You can buy other aircraft and things for this one if you wanted to load up totally the deck and things like that with it, but as I said, for what you get, I think we'll make it busy enough on the deck to go right the way through. It is going to be a long project for this one. It's going to be a long-term build on this one when I get started with it in a couple of months' time, but it should be a lot of fun to do. So if you want to see how we get on with this one, watch this space. You're still waiting for me to take the price of this. Okay, I'll just double check before I do open my mouth. The price on this particular kit will set you back a whopping £130. Okay, so it's 130 quid, but you know, we were talking about this the other day, and somebody was saying to me about, you know, expensive kits, and we only review expensive kits and all the rest of it. Just think of it like, you know, pounds per hour. All right, how many hours is it realistically going to take you to do this? I can imagine, even if you're on a speed build with this, it's still going to take you probably 80 hours work sitting at the bench to put this together. You know, so, you know, as you say, less than £2 an hour. I think that's quite cheap. Or as I say, you can go for something like the Russian SU-27 1/7 scale for £20, which you probably build in on a weekend or something else like that. So there you go, that's it. Bang for your buck. I think it's well worth the money. You do get a lot of plastic for your money. You're going to have something very large, something very impressive to show your friends when they come around. Okay, so a couple of great kits. Okay, I know it's a lot of money, but as you said, if you wanted quite a bargain, I'd have to say that this new SU-27, the Trumperter one, beautiful kit, and as I say, very large for its scale, and £20 is a bargain, and I still think, even though it is 130 quid, I still think that's a bargain too. But I say, I'll let you know in case it's horrible to put together and all the rest of it, but looking at it, it does look very, very nice. So, your questions. Only got a couple this week, so we're running a little bit on time. First of all, do you ever use Photoshop for when you're doing your photographing of your models? No, I can absolutely say I use Photoshop Elements for cropping, and sometimes I use Auto Enhance if they're a little bit dark, and that is it. I don't do any other playing with them. Personally, you know, really I'm trying to show you warts and all what I do here, so there's no point sort of making them look better, I suppose, one for a better word. But no, I don't use Photoshop. Literally, I just crop down the images. Sometimes I lighten them purely if it's a dark day, as you know. Videoing, I've got this down packed. Normal photographing wise, not very good at it, to be honest. I know you guys on the forum got some pro photographers in there who do stunning images and everything else like that. I have enough trouble taking a normal shot. Okay, and the other one is, do you ever use real primers? Now, I say when you say real primers, I think you're referring to, because I don't tend to use primers. I tend to just literally use whatever I've got. Now, to be honest, okay, bear with me here. When I was doing the review, or will be for next week, I'll be recording it probably over the weekend. I'm doing a review on the new paints, desperately hoping the Italian ones turn up in time. But I've actually bought some of this stuff. Now, this is the polyurethane surface primer by Vallejo. Now, hopefully, I'll be able to put it on test with other people's primers and things like that. But it may convert me. I know some of you guys in the forum have used this stuff and you swear by it, and it comes in black, white or grey. But as I said, I haven't used it before, but when I was buying in different paints and that to do this on test for next week, I did pick up a bottle of this, okay? So it will be interesting to see how it covers and everything else, and hey, I might be converted to using it. You know, at this point, I tend to use rattle cans on that monster when we did the space shuttle. That was just car primer over the top of it, did it outside, no problem at all. And that's the only time I've ever used a dedicated primer. So I'll use an acrylic paint. I tend to buy in bulk, to be honest, to keep the price down. So I tend to buy 6s of paint. So sometimes if I've got a lot of a certain colour, I will use it. And if you go back through certain video builds on the site, to be honest, the one that sticks in my mind is when you look at the Kinetic Hawkeye, the E2C. I actually primed it in green paint, purely because I didn't have anything else, so, you know, that'll do, we use green paint. I'm going to go over it anyway, so I can't see the problem. And it's not like you're going over it in a really dark colour, because it was like a medium green. So that's it. I do tend to use Tamiya for priming and things like that, or perhaps like a Vallejo as well. But as I said, I have got some here, and then next week I will be doing a dedicated review on these. So as I say, if they don't turn up, I'll be doing it on primer as well. If I don't, what happens is the paints will go on test. I'll put Vallejo and Italeri on test together, and then the week after I'll do ones on primer for you, which then hopefully will then tie in with the tutorial section as I'm working my way through as well. On that note, this weekend I've got a bit more time, so I will settle down. I'll put even more links. They are starting to grow now and all link into each other, but I have got some dedicated tutorials to get recorded as well. I'm just waiting on a few parts of those to come in before we update them. Okay, so that's about it for this week. Thanks for watching and everything else. What I'm going to do now is leave you with some of the great work that's been happening in the gallery. So until next week, everybody, happy modelling and take care.